Yo, what is good, y'all? It's your boy Easy, and I'm back with another reaction. And today we're gonna be reacting to top 10 Walking Dead episodes. If you is a supporter of The Walking Dead, make sure you like and subscribe. And comment what's your favorite episode, season, and who's your favorite character. Comment down below. But yeah, let's hop into this.
It's absolutely no secret I adore The Walking Dead.
Me too.
Although it's had its ups and downs, it's a series that has truthfully changed my life
Bruh.
forever, from watching it as a child to now making videos on it as an adult. So today, I thought I'd delve back into
You ain't the only one, bruh.
177 episodes of the show.
Damn, 177 episodes? I didn't even know that.
Now, this was an incredibly tricky
Yeah, so many good
episodes. There are just so
yeah.
many phenomenal episodes that just felt wrong to leave off the list. But alas, after much deliberation, I finally managed to make a list I'm happy with.
Alright, let's see what episodes you got.
Top 10 favorite.
If it's gonna be trash or good. Honorable mentions.
Now, before I get into my actual top 10, I'd like to take some time to shout out some episodes that have just missed out by the skin of their teeth. Season 7's The Day Will Come Where You Won't Be is superb, and a masterclass in tension topped off by a brilliant performance from Jeffrey Dean Morgan, but I think its heartbreaking nature keeps it just outside my personal top 10. Season 2's Judge, Jury and Executioner is also phenomenal, having one of the show's greatest speeches.
my dog Dale, bruh.
Of course, being Dale's rant about
sorry you had to die, bruh.
Season 3's Clear is one of the
his
best
death was like
I've ever seen in fiction. Also from season 3,
was
episodes
stupid.
4 and 5, titled Killer Within.
How the fuck you let his army rip you apart?
And I love particularly Andrew Lincoln and Norman Reedus' respective performances in the two. The Grove is a dark and twisted emotional roller coaster, but at the same time is a complete masterpiece. And of course, season 5's Four Walls and a Roof, where we saw the conclusion to the Terminus storyline, and Rick made his promise to Gareth by killing him with a red-handled machete, and this was
Rick loves his machetes.
And my final shout out in the honorable mention section has to go to Wrath, one of the most disrespected Walking Dead episodes ever. In my opinion, it was
I got a question for y'all. Which weapon in Walking Dead would you like want to use in a zombie apocalypse? Comment down below.
And holds a truly beautiful moment.
What's the best
for our
weapon?
Protagonist, Rick. Okay, with that all out the way, let's get into my
stumbled upon data.
Kicking off the top 10, in 10th place is Season 4, Episode 16, titled A. Now, this episode is brilliant for a number of reasons, but it's most famous for the birth of feral Rick, but more on that later. One of the reasons this episode is so effective is the writers expertly use flashbacks. Throughout its runtime, the show gives us glimpses of Rick lecturing Carl about not letting this world beat him and consume him. And Herschel is seen guiding Rick on how to build a new life. He tells him to go beyond the walls of the prison and bring back livestock and teach his son how to farm. But that, of course, isn't their reality anymore, as it's juxtaposed with Rick biting out a man's
that was crazy right there.
Carl. This contrast is phenomenal and demonstrates to
us
what
in that
Rick
situation, what would you do if somebody had a gun to your head? I was not thinking nothing of that he was gonna do that. This nigga is a demon.
Herschel is dead, the prison has been torn down, and Carl's life is now in imminent danger. That illusion of sanctuary has been ripped away from our characters, and because of this, a new version of Rick Grimes is being born. The show reminds us that Rick tried to be different, but this world inevitably caught up with him, and he is now leaning into that survival at all costs mindset that many fans had secretly been
can't be soft. You gotta be.
This scene not only represents the lengths Rick
gotta be prepared for anything.
Family, but shows us how much he's changed as a person throughout the apocalypse. Officer Friendly is now dead, and in his place stands a hardened survivor who treads
Demon
lightly
Rick,
upon
and call him.
This episode is such an effective season finale. We get the incredibly satisfying payoff of the Terminus storyline, the reunion of Daryl and Rick, one of the best friendships in fiction, some flashback scenes with Herschel Green, a man whose death
Damn,
was
R.P.
giving
Herschel,
birth
bruh.
to this more pragmatic
Dumbass
approach to
governor,
survival.
bruh.
And of course,
Fuck you.
it sets up the Terminus storyline on a platter for season 5. There is just so much to love.
And dumbass Terminus,
everybody involved.
fucking cannibals. You can't go nowhere without
Beautiful scene between Rick
something.
and Daryl, which is
Something
probably my
going on,
favorite
bro.
in this episode. In the aftermath of the Claimers attack,
Hey,
in
this
which
nigga
Daryl
had, like,
once
a
again
bow and
blames
arrow.
himself, just like he'd done in the past for Merle's death, the fall
Would you
of
rather
prison,
have like a
and
bow and arrow
disappearance.
or a
However, this
crossbow?
time, Rick reassures him by
Let me
saying
know.
it's not on him. And in turn, this frees Daryl from the shackles of burden that his character had kind of been narratively stuck in for over a season. It was an incredibly touching scene and showed us just how far these unlikely friends had come. And
Yeah,
of course, the tension
they work
is
together,
brilliant
yeah.
as the group enter Terminus. I remember watching this episode for the first time, just waiting for things to escalate, not really sure if it ever would, but sure enough, they do. Rick notices Herschel's pocket watch and some other items in possession of the termites, and a tense standoff commences. And after our group are herded into train carts and reunited with our other survivors, although they are all in this awful situation, as the viewer, you just feel like they're going to be okay, because they all have each other. And of course,
they gotta find a way anyway.
One of the coldest lines in fiction, as Rick famously utters the words,
"Yeah."
Look, this
that was fire.
Has it all. Emotion, action, tension, and immense payoff, as well as setting up for season 5 of the show. It's a superb episode of television and almost a perfect season finale. So for all of these reasons, A is my 10th
this one,
episode.
I ain't gonna lie, this one's fire. Hey, what's next? Evolution.
Now, before I get into my 9th spot, I would quickly like to say YouTube has recently changed their algorithm, so it would be incredibly helpful to my channel if you liked and subscribed.
Alright, got you, bro.
Enjoy my content, as
you're making some fire videos. Hey, and y'all subscribe too.
This video if you're a
you
mobile,
want me to react to more
but anyway,
of this?
shameless plug out
Subscribe.
of the way, let's get straight back to the video. As you've all probably read by the title by now, my 9th favourite episode is Season 9, Episode 8, titled Evolution. Although the Whisperers may have overstayed their welcome on the series, there is no denying their introduction.
The Whisperers was alright to me.
This
it wasn't all
episode
that.
has such a tense and eerie feeling, and in my opinion, really reintroduced the horror aspect back into the series. I just love how this episode handles the Whisperers themselves though. We see Daryl and Jesus, two incredibly competent survivors, be utterly bemused by the behaviour of this walker herd, and as they try and get an injured Eugene to safety, a real sense of horror and dread starts to creep over you, the viewer. Eugene's further warnings about this not being a normal horde of walkers, and explaining that they have been circling back and searching for him, only
RP Jesus, you already know what happened to him, bruh. Damn. He got messed up bad, bruh. They did him wrong with that fucking death.
Fuel to the fire. And unless you'd read the comics, you'd have no idea what horror was awaiting our characters. The previous episode sets up this mid-finale brilliantly, with Eugene and Rosita witnessing the walkers whispering to each other, and the title of this episode even suggests that maybe the walkers themselves had started to evolve and the virus had mutated.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
However, we eventually get our answers
real people,
in
bro.
the conclusion of this episode. Our group are almost herded.
You know, that's crazy. Like, all they had to do was just put a zombie mask on, and then the zombies will eat them. I never even thought of that. I never even thought that it could work. That could work. That's crazy.
Into this misty graveyard, giving you a real sense
of
and
Jesus,
RP. And as it looks like our survivors might finally slip away unscathed,
at the end,
Jesus
bro.
performs a pretty routine couple of walker kills, before one ducks under his blade and fatally stabs him. This death was not only shocking and unexpected, but executed to perfection. Jesus was one of the most capable survivors.
I fuck with Jesus too. He was
really
fired
set the
too.
tone for this new antagonist group. On
That
top of
nigga could
this,
teach you some
Evolution
stuff.
just felt a lot darker and grittier than large parts of Season 7, 8 and 9, and it was refreshing to watch. The sound design is quite frankly genius here, having the wind howling, distorted whispers from the mist, and the crunch of footsteps around our characters as our group tried to escape was utterly horrifying, and the final reveal of Daryl discovering the culprit of Jesus' death was a human being wearing a mask blending in with the walkers was awesome. Look, overall, this episode is horrifying.
That's so crazy. You got to do all that just to
uneasy and
blend in
nervous,
with the
and it's so
walkers.
tense you can't take your
But
eyes
smart
off
at the same
screen.
time.
I love how much it leans back into the zombie horror from the earlier seasons, and it holds a shocking character death in Jesus. Like I said earlier, the Whisperer storyline is by no means my favourite, but this is hands down the best antagonist introduction in the entire show, and coming in with a rating of 8.8 on IMDb,
Damn, okay.
this is a criminally underrated episode of television in my humble opinion. In at 8, I have the Season 5 finale titled Conquer. Now, I'm going to keep this section relatively short because I have an entire video about this specific episode's brilliance that's over 18 minutes long. However, in that video, I stated Conquer was in my top 5 favourite Walking Dead episodes of all time. And well, I guess I lied because it's coming in at 8. But take nothing away from it. This is a phenomenal episode and is the best season finale in the entire series for me. I mean, it has it all. Tense character-driven storyline like Glenn's fight with Nicholas and Daryl's wholesome scouting mission with Aaron. It has set up ready for Season 6 as we are finally introduced to the Wolves after half a season of build-up, and they did not disappoint. Well, in this episode at least.
My boy
Setting
Morgan,
traps,
bro.
carving W's into Walker's heads, and finding the pictures and planning an attack on Alexandria. And of course, the reunion of Rick and Morgan. Morgan arrives at Alexandria just in time to see Rick murder Pete, and it's incredibly poetic and represents just how far these two men have come from that fateful day in Atlanta. They both...
That shit crazy, like how far they came, bro. Imagine you see you in this shit right here, and y'all was buddies at first, and then y'all been seen them for years and shit, and then as soon as you come back, something crazy, you see them as like a different person, and that's crazy. This world could turn you to a different person. That's a crazy part.
Have lost so much on their journeys, but one stands with a newly adopted ideology.
RP Morgan's son
the other one with a survival by all means mindset. And when this episode aired, I was so hyped for Morgan's introduction to the main cast of the show, and it set up season 6 incredibly nicely. The wolves seem menacing and threatening, and the more political direction of season 6 always intrigued me. Look, this is a slower burning season finale, but it's incredibly rewarding at the same time. The title is fitting, as Rick and the others have finally quote-unquote conquered Alexandria. But it poses the question to the audience, have they finally gone too far? It has the satisfying character death of Pete, and Glenn continues to prove to us what a beacon of light he's become.
Yeah, Glenn went crazy
at this point
this episode.
Was sliding towards a dark
Dumbass Nicholas.
Many characters had this "the world is broken, so we must be broken as well" kind of mindset. And Nicholas represented the worst of Alexandria, a coward whose incompetence led to the horrific death of a good man in Noah. But after having the chance to kill Nicholas, Glenn...
To be honest, I wanted him to go far, but this dumbass dude killed him. He should have died instead of Noah. Fuck that shit. RP Noah.
Ultimately spares him, showing us all there is another way, and that mercy isn't always a weakness because he's strong enough to hold the burden of forgiveness, and directly contradicts Rick and the others' philosophies back in Alexandria. Again, if you want to see me talk about this episode in a lot more detail, you can on my channel, but simply put, it's brilliant, and it's my 8th favourite Walking Dead episode of all time.
No Way Out.
At 7th, I've got No Way Out. Now, this may be somewhat of a hot take, as this is many people's favourite episode in the entire series.
This is when
whilst also being
Carl got shot in the eye.
Episode on IMDb,
Right out,
coming in at a
stupid
staggeringly
ass
high
kid.
9.6. And don't get me wrong,
And then that
I
other
can
stupid ass
totally
kid got his
understand why it's a
mom
complete
8,
masterpiece. But I just
and
personally
he got
prefer
8 and
some
2.
other episodes slightly more. No Way Out is really the complete
Yeah,
package.
he got
The episode
everything.
opens
Yeah.
with some more teasers about the saviors and who the mysterious man
Yep.
Negan is.
Negan.
Introduction in season 7 before Daryl swiftly puts an end to the
Yeah,
group
that
by
shit was
blowing them
crazy.
up with an RPG,
You didn't even see that coming.
which by the way will never not be cool. Gabriel's redemption is in full swing, and I enjoyed his increased role in this episode, as he shoulders the responsibility of looking after baby Judith and inspiring some of the Alexandrians
Gabriel was
to help
cool.
Rick fight.
Gabriel was alright in the beginning, but since the seasons passed and stuff, yeah. He's not my favorite characters, but
dropping
one of
the
my
insanely
favorites,
cold
but
line, God will save Alexandria because
he's up
God's
there,
given
though.
us the strength to save it ourselves. Glenn takes a very heartwarming stand for Maggie during the Walker invasion, and of course Sasha and Abraham come to the rescue of Glenn just as he looks like he's about to meet his demise, with Abe dropping a
Yeah, they saved his ass,
but
bro.
of
I ain't
course,
gonna
No
lie.
Way Out's best aspect is the entire Rick debacle. Carl is shot in the eye by Ron, the Anderson family is devoured by walkers, and Sam's final moments are haunted by Carol's words. This whole sequence is absolutely phenomenal. Rick and Michonne spring into action, and we get some brilliant shots of them carving out
This
a
is
path
the
through the horde of the dead to try and get Carl
this
to
is the
safety.
part.
And after dropping him off, Rick goes straight back out there and morphs into a prime John Wick, slaughtering zombies.
Yeah, that nigga was demon mode when he did that shit.
It's a very powerful episode as Rick inspires everybody to take a stand. And the conclusion of the episode is not only does Rick finally accept the Alexandrians as hardened survivors and worthy members of his team, but he also comes to the realization he's done just surviving. He wants to build a new world for his son Carl, one where he can once again be a kid. And the closing shot of No Way Out is Carl's hand slowly
R.I.P. Carl, bro.
revealing to the audience he's alive. It's just superb, it's emotionally powerful, has so much tension, as for a period of time, the non-comic book fans probably thought Carl Grimes was about to be killed off, and there are so many touching moments. I mean, even Owen, the leader of the Wolves, gets a somewhat heroic send-off, saving Denise. Andrew Lincoln is consistently amazing throughout the series, but somehow he manages to elevate his performance one step further in this episode, and it's all round just a brilliant 45 minutes of television. So for all of those reasons,
the building fell down on the fence.
Okay, so I'm sure many of you are well aware of my endless love for Season 2 of The Walking Dead, so it should come as no surprise Better Angels was going to make an appearance on this top 10 list at some point. And coming in at
Season
6,
2 is
it
up
just
there, ain't
narrowly
gonna lie.
misses out on my top 5. Now, an episode like No Way Out may be more consistently engaging across its entire runtime, but Better Angels holds my favourite scene in the entire series, that of course being Rick and Shane's final standoff on the hill. The performances from John Bernthal and Andrew Lincoln in this episode are just incredible, and the scene is packed with raw emotion, tension, and was the big moment Season 2 had been building up to.
Shane,
it's a clash of two ideologies and a completely different outlook on survival, and was the first real time the show had delved into the concept of the living actually being more dangerous.
That's true.
This scene is not a crazy
do.
spectacle of action, but instead an intimate and personal exchange between two former brothers. Ultimately, this moment would change and shape Rick Grimes forever, and this episode lays the foundations for the survivor he would go on to become. Better Angels reaches fever pitch and delivers on providing the much anticipated payoff for the Rick and Shane dynamic. Look, I adore the character-driven storylines and the slow burns of Season 2.
Yeah, Shane is like
that it's not for
up there for like
However,
the best.
This episode is what all that tension had
the best characters in the
Walking Dead, and it doesn't disappoint. The setting is also perfect as the two former friends go back and forth on the misty hills of Herschel's farm, and to put the cherry on top of all of this, Carl is the one who eventually has to put down the reanimated Shane. Narratively, it was a bold move by the writers, but quite frankly, it was genius, as Carl is quickly forced to grow up after pulling that trigger. And just one day after the death of Dale, all hell breaks loose. Just as Rick wanted to prove that Dale was wrong and the group could actually work together, he's then subsequently forced to kill his best friend. Watching Shane's mind slowly unravel over the course of this season, but particularly this episode, was excellent television and gave us all an insight into the mindset and how he was feeling. Overall, I am just a huge fan of Better Angels.
But that nigga Shane had to go sooner or later. I ain't gonna lie. He just was fucking up shit. Too much.
The performances are superb, the setting is visually stunning, and it gives us this incredible payoff to one of fiction's greatest dynamics. So for all of those reasons, it's coming in at 6th place. There are very few episodes in television as powerful as season 4 is Too Far Gone, and although it's absolutely heartbreaking to watch, there's no way it could miss out on my top 10. After the influenza outbreak at the prison, our group are slowly starting to recover. That is until the return of the governor. One of fiction's greatest antagonists, however this time,
a psychopath.
The prison as a location felt like our survivors' first true sanctuary and provided an illusion of safety for a while in the apocalypse. But that would all come crumbling down in brutal fashion over the episode's 42-minute runtime. Not only would the prison be destroyed and our group split up, but we would witness the shocking death of Herschel Green, which in my opinion is right up there with the saddest death in the entire series. Herschel played such an integral role within our survivors. He was a moral compass, a father figure for Rick, and the voice of reason.
Yeah, R.P. Herschel.
At the hands of the governor,
he's up there too.
The show's tone is shifted entirely. Chaos and revenge triumphs over reason and humanity momentarily, but this episode does a brilliant job of showing the effects of war, because truthfully, in this exchange, no one wins. Herschel's killed, the prison is torn down, the governor and Rick engage in a grueling fight to the death before Michonne stabs him in the back. The attackers are nearly all wiped out.
And then that girl shot the governor in the head.
And Lily, the man the governor had
supposedly been
in love with, is the woman that kills him. The governor destroyed everything he touched, including himself, for the sake of pride. And it's that
nigga was killing his own people.
I absolutely love the pacing of this episode. It's 30 minutes of psychological standoff and tension, topped off by Rick's speech to the governor, pleading for Herschel's life, which is not only one of the best speeches in the series, but is also so powerful. As Herschel, upon hearing Rick's words, smiles back, proud of his newfound ideology. But this is followed up by 12 minutes of utter chaos. There's tension, a satisfying payoff.
Imagine if Herschel's still alive, bro.
Of a superb mid-season finale. This episode doesn't just progress the narrative, but it shatters our characters and forces them to rebuild themselves as different people. It's an utterly soul-crushing episode of television, but it is so incredibly effective. The emotional stakes are at their peak. The performances, once again from Andrew Lincoln and David Morsey, are just out of this world, and it sets up nicely for the latter half of season 4. Overall, this is just an amazing episode and is a worthy addition to my personal top 5.
To assimilate.
Okay, be honest with yourselves. Did you really expect to get through the rest of my top 10 without encountering another episode from season 2? As in at 4th place, I have Pretty Much Dead Already. This episode just has so much to unpack. Glenn reveals to everyone that the barn on Herschel's farm is in fact full of walkers. Rick is attempting to bargain some kind of living agreement with Herschel, but he still insists he wants them all gone.
So if you somebody let you into their property and they have like a secret, and you're the only one that know, would you tell the rest of your group? Or would you keep it a secret? Let me know down below. Cause you can fuck up some shit, or it could just be cool. Let me know down below.
Before the end of the week, and Daryl opens up to Carol about feeling isolated on the farm. There are just so many interesting subplots happening in this mid-season finale, but one moment would change it all. Shane, after finding out the barn is full of walkers,
should never tell
charges
Shane,
in
bro.
and demands the group take a stand, handing out weapons, whilst Herschel protests, saying the walkers are still people and they should all wait for a cure to be found.
Yeah, that's crazy
Writers
too.
use
It's
this
still
Shane
people.
and
Come
Herschel
on now.
conflict to trap Rick in the middle. Rick attempts to play diplomat by trying to help Herschel lead a walker into the barn.
Like, why you still keeping them alive? Just let them die, bro.
For much of the first half of season 2, his
bro.
relationship with Shane had been strenuous, but manageable, and it had never reached boiling point, but here it finally does. Their relationship is shattered as Shane publicly challenges Rick's leadership, and although on the surface Shane does the right thing, in typical Shane fashion, he does it in the wrong manner, and he doesn't think about the consequences of his actions, aka Herschel kicking them all off the farm. This episode has such a good build-up to the final sequence. You have Shane and Dale's legendary beef in the woods, Glenn's dilemma about telling the group about the barn full of walkers, even though it would upset Maggie, Carol and Daryl's friendship starting to blossom, and Shane confronting Laurie about her pregnancy, explaining he's sure that child is his. And to end the episode with a bang, we get the barn sequence. Our group line up and execute all the walkers stored in the barn, and just as the ordeal finally looks looking for, one walker stumbles out.
Sophia, fuck. Sophia,
the girl they had spent.
When this shit happened, bro, I was mad as hell, bro. All this time, was she in the barn the whole time, bro? Come on now. Man, that's crazy. Everybody was thinking she was still alive too. It's a crazy part.
This time searching for, and this moment is just phenomenal. It's a shocking twist and the first truly heartbreaking death in the series in my opinion. It demonstrated the show wasn't going to shy away from these heavier themes. Carol's reaction is just raw heartbreak, and seeing Daryl embrace her is quite a touching moment. But
sorry about that, Carol. I know it feels crazy. I know it felt crazy.
Put down the reanimated Sophia. Shane, the man who started this massacre and claimed Rick couldn't make these hard decisions.
Another thing is, if Shane didn't do that, they wouldn't have been still looking for her, wasting time. So Shane is kind of right, kind of wrong. Like he in the middle. But now they know, so they can end it. They go like a new route, a new way. So like it's kind of right, kind of wrong.
Move. And it was Rick who accepted the burden of leadership by making the hard decision so others didn't have to. And this is the precise moment I think Rick truly became the leader of our survivors. Pretty much dead already.
Yeah, this is a fire episode too.
In many ways, it's a funeral for our characters.
Surprised he could pick like 10 out of these, out of all these episodes. It's crazy.
Shane's friendship. It sets up the latter half of season 2 on a platter, and the screen time is evenly distributed amongst a vast array of side characters with intriguing side plots. This is season 2 at its best, a political study on human nature mixed in with some zombie action, and for those very reasons, it's coming in at 4th place.
What comes after? Season 9, episode 5.
Okay, we are finally into the top 3, and in 3rd place, I've got season 9's What
Judith.
After. Now, this is not only the most emotional episode in the entire series, in my opinion, but was also the perfect.
This is when who blew up the.
This beautifully constructed 45 minutes of television delves into the journey of our protagonist Rick, and the episode is built around the literal and metaphorical ride that Rick had endured. A gravely injured Rick desperately attempts to
I think this is part
away from the community.
This episode.
And as he drifts in and out of consciousness, he hallucinates different people from his past.
To be honest, did he really have to
Shane, Herschel, and Sasha
blow up the bridge, bro? Come on now.
Incredible and feel so nostalgic, but none more than his hallucination of Herschel Green. This would be the late Scott Wilson's final role on screen, and what a beautiful one it was. You can't help but think how proud Herschel would have been of everything
I just thought about that too.
And I also love the conversation he has with Shane Walsh. Shane doesn't berate him for killing him, he accepts that he needed to do that in order to survive. And the narrative acknowledges that the monster Rick had become in seasons 4 and 5 was also absolutely necessary, because ultimately that was the cost of survival. Rick blowing up the bridge will never not have me in heaps of tears. It's emotionally devastating as Michonne and Daryl...
When I seen it the first time, I thought he was really dead. I was mad as hell. I was like, damn, no more Rick, bro. That's the main character. You can't get off the main character. Come on.
And I absolutely love how Daryl shoots a couple of walkers approaching Rick, and how Rick just turns and gives him a nod of approval, cementing a brotherhood that had been forged through loss and survival.
I know
And we'd
why
all
he
grown
do
up
that.
watching these two become the best of friends. And as he pulls that trigger of the pistol, Daryl just stands there with
Like
floods
he
of
wanted
tears
to
in his
die or
eyes, and
something.
Michonne screams out for her partner. It's absolutely soul-crushing. Throughout the episode, Rick has been searching for his quote-unquote family, but in his final moments of clarity, he realizes that his family isn't a biological thing, it's the entire collective he'd been on this
Yeah.
immense journey with. And by destroying the bridge, something he'd
Yeah,
worked
I know.
so
I know
hard
that
to
took
unify
forever just to
everybody to
build, bro.
build, he performs the ultimate act of selflessness, proving what an excellent leader he'd become. This episode was a fitting goodbye to one of fiction's most iconic characters, and once again, Andrew Lincoln should be showered in glory for his performance here. I adore this episode of television, and Angela Kang outdoes herself directing it. The show forces Rick to reflect on his colossal journey up to this point, something us, the audience, had also become incredibly invested in. And this was just a masterpiece from start to finish. Great pacing, amazing cameos, and emotionally
Good
depth.
shit, bro.
So for all of those reasons, what comes after is coming in at third place.
No sanctuary.
Now, No Sanctuary is widely regarded as the greatest Walking Dead episode ever made, and with good reason. It's an electric season opener to season 5 and the joint highest rated on IMDb. However, it ever so slightly just
Carol
misses
say
out
all of
on
them.
one spot. Carrying on
And
from
they
the
fucked up the
insanely good
sanctuary.
episode A that I talked about in my 10th spot, No Sanctuary picks up with our group trapped in the train carts of Terminus, as Rick, Glenn, Daryl and Bob are brought to the slaughterhouse to be killed and eaten by the termites. However, all hell is about to break loose.
You gotta be a crazy motherfucker to
a one-woman assault
start eating people.
demonstrating to us just how far she's come from the abused housewife we saw in season 1 of the show, and the loud explosion Carol causes gives Rick and the others
That's when
a slither of
Carol finally came back.
One that they would not turn down, as they execute some termites with incredible efficiency. After this moment, our group fight tooth and nail to escape this cannibal hell, and what I love about this episode is it's not only jam-packed with action, gore and insane combat, but after it's all said and done and its blistering start, the episode finally gives our characters a much-earned emotional payoff. I mean, our survivors had been through so much on the road to Terminus, and seeing Rick find out Judith was still alive, Carol and Daryl reunite, and Tyrese and Sasha embrace, felt like the light at the end of an incredibly dark tunnel. And I think it was not only much needed for our characters, but also us, the audience, giving the carnage that had just taken place a purpose, as it's what they'd all been fighting so desperately for. Look, this episode is absolutely phenomenal. The termites are layered enough to make them menacing and worthy antagonists, and Gareth makes for an unsettling and charismatic leader, with my favourite moment from the episode being the scene where Rick promises to kill him despite being tied up and about to be executed. Usually, a character in this very position would offer a deal or plead for mercy, but instead Rick looks Gareth dead in the eyes and signs him a death warrant, which would not only make the moment in Four Walls and a Roof later on when he does fulfill this promise to kill Gareth so much more satisfying, but also demonstrates just how far Rick had come on this journey. And even though Gareth looks like he'd got the upper hand, Rick demonstrated just one episode earlier what he would do to protect the people he loved.
Rick don't play by his people.
Truly was the apex predator in his environment. I honestly think this episode is just brilliant because it's an unwavering triumph for our survivors. None of them are killed in this exchange, and they fight their way out of a cannibal's compound before reuniting as a family once again. It was a victory in every sense of the word, and our group felt unstoppable in this moment. It became the gold standard on how to open a season, and is not only one of the best episodes in The Walking Dead, but flat out in television history. So for all of those reasons, No Sanctuary is my second favourite.
Alright, what's the first one? Episode 1, Season 1, yep.
And coming in at
Okay.
first place, being my
I
favorite
see.
Walking Dead episode of all time.
Yeah, all the beginning, bro.
In the show's pilot episode.
Yeah, this is
titled
hits different, bro.
Now,
First
this is not only
episode,
the
bro.
greatest pilot episode
Come on
of
now.
any TV series ever made, but my personal favorite episode of television ever created. And I'm
It started
fully
out
aware
so
that
fucking
may be
good,
an
bro.
unpopular opinion, but this episode I hold so dearly to my heart. And I can and will talk about its brilliance in a bit, but I first want to discuss what this episode means to me personally. I remember my dad watching this episode when it first aired on Halloween night in 2010 in our front room, and seeing it as a kid, I was totally immersed into this post-apocalyptic world. And whenever I rewatch this episode, I get this overwhelming feeling of warmth and nostalgia. Not only does it take me back to a simpler time where the only worries I had was if I'd done my maths homework, but it also causes me to fall back in love with the series over and over again. Honestly, The Walking Dead has changed my life forever. Along with you,
I can't stop watching it. Watch your videos,
which I couldn't be more
fucking
playing
games of it, Walking Dead games.
Very episode. Anyway,
this shit
with all
is
that
goated for real.
way, this episode is pure perfection. Frank Darabont made it like a cinematic experience. And when Rick wakes up to find the world as he knows it is now gone.
Like, imagine you in a coma and you wake up to a zombie apocalypse. That's the craziest shit.
To create as Rick slowly limps out the hospital is absolutely superb, and the lack of dialogue builds a sense of dread. The audience shares Rick's confusion and terror at the world because we are witnessing it for the very first time, just like him. And the cinematography is just breathtaking, giving us some of the series' most iconic shots, such as Rick riding into the
this shot was fire too.
On horseback.
See all those cars trying to get out.
Dwayne Jones was done expertly by
everybody was going out of the city because it was like
what's happened whilst he's been in his coma, whilst
hella fucking
demonstrating
walkers
the
in there.
impossible decisions this new world forces upon you, giving us all a glimpse of what was to come for Rick. This comes in their inability to kill Morgan's
Jenny,
which would ultimately come back to haunt Morgan forever.
RPG,
she would go on to
Morgan's wife.
And the sound design. The cricket score as the sun beams down on a bewildered Rick leaving the hospital is purely a work of art. And as the episode itself goes on, we start to grasp the scale of the horrors that have occurred whilst Rick's been in his coma. It's a flawless introduction to the character of Rick Grimes, and you immediately become invested in his desperation to find his son Carl and his wife Laurie.
That's how they got us.
Instantly grabs your attention and immerses you deep.
They got us
into
with a
the
story
first
to try to find his.
The performances from
he do all this to try to find his
for this
son and his
This episode sets
wife.
The stakes for what will become
and then right there,
journey
we finally found them.
And gives us the foundations of a good man in Rick and gets ready to push him to
his best episode
limits, setting up the themes of the entire series. Again, to me, this doesn't feel like a TV show in the best possible way. It feels like an entire blockbuster movie. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what the perfect pilot episode looks like, and it's just exquisite from minute 1 to minute 67. And yes,
7.
But that is precisely why it's my favourite Walking Dead episode ever made. I'd quickly like to clarify, not because of the fact it's 67 minutes long, but for all of the other reasons I've mentioned. And I will never forget seeing the camera pan out as Rick's stuck inside the tank, the radio flickers, and we all hear a voice. And this is accompanied by the sound of Space Junk, which is now subsequently one of my favourite songs of all time. But with that being said, those are my personal top 10 favourite Walking Dead episodes.
Alright, y'all. This video is fire. If you want me to react to more, you already know what to do. And y'all, down below, what's y'all favorite episodes? Just name one. I ain't gonna lie, I don't have a favorite episode. Most of all the episodes, I think is up there, so I can't pick one. But y'all down below, pick one. Alright, y'all, easy out. Peace.